Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast on day 14 of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Over the course of the next half hour, India Today and our biggest team of reporters on ground zero from Kyiv to Kharkiv, from Mariupol to Irpin, we will get you the latest ground reports on the battle and the various twists and turns in this battle on ground and on the diplomatic front. Day 14 of the battle is eerily close to the capital Kiev. Right behind me, preparations on to make sandbags very close to the presidential palace. Is that an indication that the security cordon is now increasingly getting shrunk? While Russia may have announced a corridor of silence. That means Russia says it's a unilateral ceasefire on its side in cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Mariupol, so that people can leave these cities. What does that indicate? Is this then the lull before the big storm?
Two weeks into Russia's invasion on Ukraine, ruthless shellings, missile strikes and aerial attacks continue unabated. And so does the unparalleled human tragedy. Air raid alerts continued to blare in capital Kiev, second largest city of Kharkiv and Vinnytsia. Residents still holed up in the devastated cities had to run for their lives for the nearest bomb shelter.
An air raid siren over Kyiv. Yet again, we're in the heart of Kyiv and you can look around the air raid sirens. Once again, people are being asked to rush to evacuate vehicles, security asking vehicles to get off the road. But these air raid sirens, despite Russia saying that there will be no action enters, the air raid sirens continue to go off. Of course, there have been air attacks and missile attacks in some other areas, but right now, air raid sirens in the heart of Kiev on the 14th day of war, it appears to be a cause for concern.
Kharkiv buildings were reduced to ruins after heavy shellings. Smoke engulfed cars, trees burnt and charred. The aftermath of an air attack, a broken bridge in Irpin, a Kiev suburb narrated the fierce destruction. Fleeing locals had to cross the broken bridge, putting themselves in grave danger.
Kiev right now is like a castle with lots of blockposts, with lots of people around who are working together, and they don't get about their occupation. They're just taking guns. They're taking everything they can. They're organizing themselves. They are communicating. They're searching for information. They're checking the information. They are helping to poor people. They do lots of things, humanitarian things, military things, assisting things, a lot of it. And I just want to mention that to Alex's previous words, more than 50 children become a victim of this Putin invasion.
A massive Russian attack on a military dormitory in Zhytomyr left it in ruins. The entire area was demolished beyond recognition. Sumy, the northeastern city of Ukraine, is flattened after successive attacks. Ukraine said Russian bombardment claimed over 21 lives, including that of 3 children, on Wednesday. India had used the green corridor from Sumy to evacuate stranded students. But the Ukrainians continue to fight with resilience. They shot down a Russian chopper in the wee hours around the Mykolaiv region. Seized Russian tanks were seen being towed away. But amid unending crisis, there were first signals of a possible truce. President Zelensky, in a big climb down, said that he is no longer seeking for a NATO membership for Ukraine, adding that NATO is not prepared to accept Ukraine and he understood this a long time ago. He said NATO is afraid of confrontation with Russia.
The war is going exactly the way Russians expected it to go. These are small setbacks here and there, tactical setbacks. They are not major strategic setbacks. They are very tactical in nature and they can be overcome sooner or later. But see how things are changing diplomatically and on a political front.
Yeah.
Zelensky, who appeared to be so adamant till a few days back about negotiating with Russia and with Putin directly, he's now, you see his stance changing now, and he's coming down and he's willing for a negotiation.
Yeah.
Not only that Ukraine probably will not be pressing for its membership of NATO, but also that they are ready to talk about Crimea and those Donbass.
Yes.
And that's a major shift in policy. What Russia anticipated and what Russia planned and what Russia executed, it's going exactly as they wanted.
Will Zelensky's conciliatory note strike a chord with Putin? With Gaurav Sawant and Rajesh Pawar in Kiev, Bureau Report, India Today.
Has Ukraine been led up the garden path? Poland offered to give all its functional MiG-29 fighters to Ukraine, but not directly. Poland says it will park them at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany, and it wants aircraft in turn from the United States for its Air Force. What does this indicate? I want to cut across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, who joins us for more on the story. Geeta, bring us the diplomatic front battles that are on, and is Ukraine increasingly getting only lip sympathy and service from the rest of the world, Geeta?
Ukraine has been left to its own devices to take on Russia. In the latest, the United States of America has rejected Poland's offer to send MiG-29s via a NATO base in Germany. This even as NATO continues to reject Ukraine's pleas and requests to declare Ukrainian airspace as no-fly zone.
Over 2 weeks of relentless attacks by Russia. Multiple Ukrainian appeals to NATO for help. Empty promises for Ukraine.
We're in this together. We will succeed together. Ukraine is going to prevail.
But Zelensky is all alone in this war. And now the West has pulled a new stunt over hapless Kyiv over sending fighter jets to take out advancing Russian army. NATO member Poland did a symbolic offer to send MiG-29s to support Ukraine's air defense, but with a massive catch. Warsaw said it will merely send its jets to NATO air base in Germany's Ramstein, putting the onus on the US to send the jets to Ukraine. The proposal faced a categorical rejection. Pentagon, wary of getting drawn into the war, called the offer untenable, adding that deploying jets from NATO base to Ukrainian airspace will be an act of direct conflict and raise serious concerns for the entire military alliance.
There's already a sense of betrayal in Ukraine right now. Now they're playing Chinese checkers with their jets as part of the NATO alliance, but not actually substantively sending any forces into Ukraine. It is understandable why they don't want to do that, but these little moves between Poland and Germany and NATO and the US just shows that there is no plan in place.
This essentially means Zelensky and Ukraine are left to fend for themselves against Putin's army, with no help forthcoming from the West.
They are attacking civilians, and attacks against civilians cannot be left unresponded for too long. That is why I expect the governments of the NATO countries to be reacting in the nearest future.
This is not the first time Zelensky is facing betrayal from the West. A week ago, NATO rejected Zelensky's fervent appeal to enforce a no-fly zone on Ukraine's skies.
Today, the leadership of the alliance gave the green light for further bombing of Ukrainian cities and villages, having refused to set up a no-fly zone.
Could the NATO and West avert the massive human suffering and unprecedented destruction of Ukraine? Or they simply wilted in the face of Putin's unprecedented show of strength? Bureau Report, India Today.
I now hand over to my colleague Rajesh Pawar, who brings you the latest on the big statement delivered by President Zelensky.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made a huge climb down by saying that Ukraine is no longer interested in a NATO membership. There is a sense of betrayal here in Ukraine. NATO so far has just been about talk, and Ukrainians feel that they have been left alone in their fight against the Russian. Zelensky says that the alliance is afraid of taking bold decisions and a confrontation with Russia.
Я запитав сьогодні у 27 лідерів Європи, чи буде Україна в НАТО.
Today I've asked 27 European leaders whether Ukraine will be in NATO. I've asked directly, everyone is afraid. No one answers. But we are not afraid. We are not afraid of anything. We are not afraid to defend our country. We are not afraid of Russia. We are not afraid of talking about neutrality. We are not NATO members at the moment. But what guarantees will we get?
Ukraine's bid to get membership of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization is at the heart of the Russia-Ukraine conflict that has now triggered a full-blown war. The two countries are at each other's throats. The third player, NATO, is silent over the key issues. While thousands are displaced and hundreds dead, NATO is not committing to a membership for Ukraine so far. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has also urged NATO to enforce a no-fly zone over his country's skies and protect them from Russian missiles and warplanes. NATO has not agreed to either of his demands.
NATO is a defensive alliance. Our core task is to keep our 30 nations safe. We are not part of this conflict, and we have a responsibility to ensure it does not escalate and spread beyond Ukraine, because that would be even more devastating and more dangerous.
Zelensky feels let down by his Western allies. He said the West could have helped Ukraine, but they witnessed our city get bombed. As the war rages in Ukraine, NATO allies seem to have made distinctions in the help they offer. While they may supply weapons to Ukraine, they will not enter the war in any active role. Ukrainians will have to defend their land themselves. Bureau Report, India Today.
Over to Sergei now, who will take us through Ukraine's big and unexpected fight back.
14 days on, Ukraine has put up a kind of resistance that wasn't expected. Russia, from the first day, had impressed upon the Ukrainian troops to lay down arms. But that has not happened. From home ground, advantage to information warfare, we decode 5 reasons how Ukraine has showed Russia's advance.
When Russia invaded Ukraine on 22nd February, many felt it would be only a matter of days before the mighty Russian military got the better of the Ukrainian forces. A fortnight later, the end game remains unclear. Ukraine has put up a resistance that was least expected by Russia, especially with civilians voluntarily joining the war to resist the Russian might. With the fall of Kherson, Russian forces were expected to take control of other key cities like Kiev and Kharkiv. The nature of fight back indicates a detailed battle plan at play. Ukrainian forces have been preparing and readying for a Russian invasion since 2014, when Crimea was annexed. The country's entire military is in tune to fight Russia, as they don't have any threats from its other neighbors like Poland, Hungary, Slovakia or Romania. Putin's soldiers have been surprised by ground tactics of Ukraine troops, including anti-tank weaponry and sniper fire. Russia is also on the back foot in urban warfare because its air force was pressed into action late after the initial bombardment by cruise missiles on February 24th. Lastly, Ukraine might have an inferior military, but it is winning the information battle. They have successfully convinced the world that Russia is the only aggressor and villain in this war.
While claims made by Ukraine about the Russian losses, the death of 11,000 troops, 46 aircrafts, 68 helicopters might not be accurate, but the images of damage to military platforms show Russians have faced a stiff resistance from the Ukrainian forces, what was expected to be a lopsided contest. Ukraine's military might not be a match for the firepower and the numbers of the Russians, but they continue to resist. This is Rajesh Pawar reporting from Kyiv for India Today.
The temperature is -1 here in Kiev at this point of time. It is snowing a little, but at least there's sunshine. Will this bring hope? Or is this then the lull before the storm? And while the temperatures may be plummeting, the diplomatic and strategic tempers are all set to soar. That is all my team and I have for you on this special broadcast from Kiev. Many thanks for watching. For all the latest news and updates, stay with